With us today on Live Fist is former Chief of the Naval Staff, Admiral Arun Prakash, one of the country's veteran aviators and a person who's written extensively since his retirement on India's aviation projects as well. Welcome, Admiral Prakash. Thank you for speaking to Live Fist. Our first question to you is on a current topic that you've written about, you've been tweeting about as well, sir. Your views on the current status of the LCA project.
If you look at the LCA's history and the juncture that we've arrived at, things don't look too good. The future is the HAL is going to deliver 5, 6 or 7 aircraft per year to the Indian Air Force, then things don't look too bright. At the same time, I'm of the firm conviction that the LCA represents the future of India's aeronautic industry. If we do not make a full success of this project, then I'm afraid our aeronautic industry is doomed to become a licensed production, assembly, etc., etc. So we have to make this project a success. And by success, I mean it should get full operational clearance. The production should be ramped up to 15 to 20 aircraft per year so that the Air Force can build up its strength. The production run should go into 200, 250 aircraft, and it should go into various versions, Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3. So that's my definition of making the LCA a complete success.
Admiral Prakash, the Air Force has lately moved a proposal. It wants to take control of the LCA project. Your views on that? Because there's been a history of administrative unease between HAL, the Indian Air Force, and the Aeronautical Development Agency, which has led the development of the LCA. Your views on the Air Force now wanting to take control?
Okay, before I comment on this particular issue, let me hark back to the Indian Navy's own experience in warship building.
Yes.
Now, nobody can deny that it's been a success. And the reason for this success is the Indian Navy took ownership of every single warship building program. It insisted on participating at every level, and invariably the head of every shipbuilding yard is a retired naval officer. That is the secret of success. Now, if you look at corresponding aeronautic issues, every project has either fizzled out, starting from the Marut, the Kaveri turbojet engine, the LCA project, and even if you look across the spectrum to other defense PSUs, the problem has been involvement of the user. Now, for whatever reason, the IAF decided to keep its distance from the LCA, which was, in my opinion, it was a big mistake. So now that they've realized the mistake and they actually want to participate in it, I think that's a welcome sign, because the LCA project has reached only the halfway mark. The development is over, the flight testing is over, now we're going to go into production. And as I just mentioned, unless we have a run of 250 to 300 aircraft LCAs, it's not going to be a success. To make this phase, which is as crucial as the previous phase, it's important to involve the user. And what better way than to install an Air Force person as the head of the production agency?
Right. Admiral Prakash, while the LCA Air Force is tentatively on track, production has begun. Squadron service is taking some baby steps as well. The LCA Navy is apparently no longer a viable project. The Indian Navy has decided not to continue with it in its current form. Your views on that? Because when you were Navy Chief, the LCA Navy was still a project, but there were many misgivings about its performance parameters. Your views on the LCA Navy not heading towards being an operational aircraft?
Well, the LCA Navy is linked with aircraft carriers. If it can perform from the aircraft carrier, the Navy will take it. There's no doubt about it. But if it cannot, then the Navy has to have some other options. Now, let me provide a small background. The Navy, with its eyes fully open, embarked on the LCA project sometime in the early 1990s. We were fully aware that this is a great challenge to convert a land-based aircraft into a carrier version. It's a very rare occurrence. And the scientists, DRDO scientists, ADA people told us that it's going to be a challenge. The Navy accepted this challenge and was fully aware that it may work out, it may not work out, there may be delays in it. And knowing all this, the Navy funded it because the Navy is very keen that our aircraft designers, our aircraft industry should gain experience. So the Navy had insured against it. If the LCA worked out, well and good, we would put it on IAC-1, the indigenous aircraft carrier. Should it by any chance not work out, as an insurance, the Navy went out and acquired 45 29Ks. And the chief has said, the current chief has said that LCA Navy is not at this moment ready to embark aircraft carriers.
Yes.
And yet they have not withdrawn support to it. He said it in publicly that LCA Navy still has a Navy support, and maybe in the years to come, it will eventually come to fruition and embark aircraft carriers. So the Navy is not withdrawn, but the Navy has to meet its current operational commitment, so for which they are looking elsewhere.
Admiral, what lessons from the light combat aircraft project, in your view, need to be applied to India's future aviation projects, specifically the fifth generation AMCA concept, that's still on the drawing board? But what lessons do you think need to be applied that have been learned from the LCA project?
I think a lesson that needs to be learned at the national level is that you cannot have aspirations for regional power, great power, status, etc., unless you have a viable arms industry of your own. If you're going to keep looking over your shoulder for support in this field, then you will remain dependent, you remain under obligation to some country or the other, and therefore your objective of autonomy, strategic autonomy will never be attained. Today we are abjectly dependent on Russia because 75% of our weapons come from there. Spare parts will come from there. Tomorrow we'll be dependent on the USA because we purchased 10 billion worth. Similarly, so you cannot be power of any sort unless you attain autonomy in weapon production. This lesson has to be understood at the political level. Your statesmen must understand that as part of your whole matrix of India achieving a status is this, that your military-industrial complex must be as self-sufficient as possible. So the lesson number one is that there must be a politician or a statesman with a vision of India's military power. That, I'm afraid, has not existed for 70 years. You look around you, China launched, as soon as they kicked out the Russians in the early 60s, they launched a project called Guanchu-Hua. Okay, and that was a project of reverse engineering. In the first 20 years, they reverse engineered every piece of Russian equipment that they had. Then they went on, they had various phases. Today, they are almost on the verge of competing with the USA. You look at our neighborhood on to the west, Pakistan. They decided they wanted to be self-sufficient. They started the Pakistan Aeronautical Complex, owned by the Pakistan Air Force, manned completely by PAS. The head is always a PAS man. They have the heavy rebuild factory in Taxila. Built tanks, armored vehicles, etc. So a political vision is necessary, number one. Number two, the user service must be intimately involved. Number three, the people whom you select as project managers for your vital strategic projects must be qualified. Scientists are great people in the laboratory. Technocrats are great people on the shop floor. But project management is a skill which doesn't come with degrees and so on. So you have the whole huge pool of armed forces people who are users. They are used to meeting targets, etc. So pick from the Kamra project. Pak Aeronautical Complex is always Air Marshal. Taxila heavy build is a lieutenant general. Or if you don't like soldiers in uniform, then go to the private sector. Choose people who are bright and full of initiative and so on. So these are the three keys: that a political vision, user interface, and project management. Without them, I don't think we'll get anywhere.
Admiral, my final question with you. Alongside these indigenous projects, the LCA and the concept AMCA project, India has also rebooted its quest for fighters from abroad. It's part of an elaborate and ambitious Make in India campaign, where both the Indian Air Force and the Indian Navy are looking for, possibly Indian-built foreign aircraft. Your view on this, on this quest, considering that it's been so difficult in the past. We've seen an earlier contest that hasn't quite come to fruition. There have been budgetary issues. as you said, there are, the issues of sovereignty and India's aspirations for being a regional power. Your views on India looking for these fighters?
Well, this is obviously a firefighting solution. It's an imperative which is required for our national security. At this moment, as you can see, the Air Force strength is dwindling. The Navy is going to have 2 aircraft carriers but lacks aircraft. So this is an imperative to bridge the current gap. However, if there is political vision and wisdom behind this acquisition, then we can still, make up for lost time. If you're going to build 100 or 150 foreign aircraft in India, then that process must be accompanied by a parallel process of actual learning, transfer of technology in the real sense, starting with metallurgy, with precision engineering, with those kind of things. And at the end of this process, when we finish building 100 aircraft, we should have the capability of making a Mark II or developing our own aircraft or turbojet, etc. Now, HAL has built 3,000 aircraft so far, but have they learned how to even modify an aircraft? For MiG-21 upgradation, we had to go to Russia. So this process must be backed by political vision, which I'm afraid is lacking at this moment. That you build aircraft under license, but in the process, you develop a capability to design and build your own aircraft, your own turbojet engines. I keep emphasizing turbojet engine because an aircraft industry which doesn't have its own turbojet engine is not going to go very far.
Admiral Arun Prakash, thank you so much for speaking to LifeSafe.